Hey there, James here. Hope you're having a good day and welcome to another one of my short music theory lessons. Now, if you haven't already, check out my book, Noble Music Theory for Guitar. There's a link to check it out under this video. I mean, I took hours writing this. It really is the answer for any guitar player who wants to understand the essential music theory. About 95% of the essential music theory you need to know, without all the confusion and everything that holds guitar players up for years. So do check it out. A lot of players are really finding this beneficial. There's a link under the video, so check it out if you feel like you need to really brush up on your music theory because it's holding you up. And let me tell you, it's a very sort of useful skill to have as a guitar player. It can really help move your playing forward. Anyway, enough about the book. Let's move on to today's lesson. And a little while ago, I posted a video on the basic intervals. And we said that intervals is a way of describing the distance between two notes. Just a very quick recap before we move on to today's follow-up lesson. We had the C major scale, and we basically numbered the notes, and then we could sort of refer to them and give them the names depending on what number they were. We said that C to D is a second or a major second because D is a second note in the scale. We said that C to E was a third, or the proper name for it was a major third, simply because E is the third note in the scale. We saw that C to F is a fourth, or the proper name for it is a perfect fourth, because F is the fourth note in the scale. C to G is a fifth, or a major fifth. C to A is a sixth, or a major sixth. C to B is a seventh, or a major seventh. And C to C is an octave. We basically said that they are all major apart from the fourth and the fifth, which are perfect. Okay, and that was the sort of the more traditional classical music type music theory language there. A lot of modern musicians just talk about them as seconds or flat seconds or sharp fourths, this kind of stuff. And we're going to get into that in just a second. Now, you see, the thing is, we can describe the distance from C to any note in the scale with a number. But what about when it's a note that isn't in the major scale? For example, C to E flat or something. What are we going to do with that? Well, that's exactly what we're going to look at now. So let's look at what we get if we take the second note in the C major scale and we flatten it. So C to D is a second, but what about if we wanted to talk about C to D flat? So I'm going to put a little flat sign next to that one. Now, the thing to remember is that when we flatten a major interval, it becomes what's called a minor interval. So C to D flat, or C to D is a second, so we could call C to D flat a flattened second interval. The proper name for it, however, would be a minor second. Okay, so C to D is a second, C to D flat we could say is a flattened second or a minor second. Do you get that? Let's move on to the next one. C to E, let's say we wanted to talk about C to E flat. We could describe it as a flattened third, because C to E is a third. C to E flat, we could simply say, well, it's like a flattened third. It's a third that's been flattened. However, just like the second, it has a proper name for it, and that is a minor third. And you would have heard of minor chords and minor scales. Understanding this is the reason why things in music are called minor. C to E flat is a minor third. Okay, let's move on to the next one. C to F. Now, we said that that was a perfect fourth. Let's say we wanted to sharpen that, turn it into an F sharp. So here's another little rule. We've seen that if we flatten a major interval, it becomes a minor interval. When we sharpen a perfect interval, like the fourth, it becomes an augmented interval. So augmented, C to F sharp, we could say is a sharpened fourth, or we could say it's an augmented fourth. In music, augment basically means to sharpen. So C to F sharp, an augmented fourth. Now let's look at the fifth. So we've got a perfect fifth here, C to G. Let's say we wanted to describe the interval from C to G flat. Put a flat sign next to that to give us a G flat. The third little rule you need to remember is when we flatten a perfect interval, it becomes a diminished interval. And again, you've probably heard of diminished chords and diminished scales and things. Well, this is where all that comes from. C to G flat is a flattened fifth, or the sort of traditional name for it would be a diminished fifth. Okay, C to G flat, a diminished fifth. Now, what about if we wanted to sharpen that G note? Let's see what happens there. So I'm going to rub out the flat sign, C to G sharp. Well, we saw with the fourth here that if we sharpen a perfect interval, it becomes augmented. So C to G is a perfect fifth. C to G sharp would be an augmented fifth. Okay, augmented fifth. Next one, C to A is a major sixth. So what about C to A flat? Well, it's a major interval. We've flattened it. It's going to become a minor interval. C to A flat is the interval of a minor sixth. Okay. C to B here is the interval of a major seventh. So just like with the sixth, if we flatten it, it's going to become a minor interval. It's going to become a minor seventh. So C to B is a major seventh. C to B flat is going to become a minor seventh. Okay, and that is pretty much how these other intervals work. Now, these intervals which aren't in the major scale are often called chromatic intervals. You can think of them as non-major scale intervals, meaning ones that we don't find in the major scale. So you can see here the black ones are the notes in the actual major scale. Well, I've sharpened and flattened them. They're the notes that aren't in the major scale. But the interesting thing is we describe them in terms of how they're different from the notes in the major scale. So using this, you can actually describe the distance from C to any other note in music using an interval or a number. And that's how intervals work. That's how music works. So what I reckon you should do is check out the video that comes before this and get really clear about the major scale intervals if you haven't done that already. And then follow it up with this one. And after that, you'll have a pretty good idea of how intervals work. And when you hear someone talk about a flattened second or an augmented fourth or a minor seventh or something, you're going to have a pretty good idea of at least some of what that what they're talking about. And this is why this is really helpful, because these are the kind of words that musicians use and talk about when they describe music. So very beneficial to understand it. I'll do some more videos on intervals, maybe with recognizing them by ear, because all they all have a certain sound, which is also good to get into. But we'll get into that another time. So that's about it for today. Remember to do check out my book here. It talks about all this stuff in a lot more detail. It gives you quizzes and examples and everything, which really lays all this out in the most easy to understand way. So check that out, and you'll find that very useful if you're trying to really nail your music theory and you don't want it to take years and you don't want to be confusing, which is what happens to so many players. I was confused about that stuff for years. Anyway, that's all from me today. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope you've got something useful out of this video. Remember to subscribe and keep watching, and I'll see you in my next lesson. So have a great day, and I'll catch you next time.